Women of Reddit, what's your cringy nice guy story? Guy I'd hung out with a few times, offered to come feed my cat for the weekend I was away. We agreed on how much I'd pay him. When I got home I saw that he left the money on the counter. I texted to thank him and ask when I can pick up my key. He basically demanded 6, since he hadn't taken the money and he wanted 6 instead. I said I'm not a whore, and he should have just taken the $20 as agreed. Then he refused to give back my key, and said he would sell it on Craigslist with my address and photos of me. I informed him that I'd screenshotted the conversation and send it to several friends, and if anything happened to me, they would show the convo to the police, and that I didn't think a little dancer boy would fare well in prison. He then said that threatening to have me raped was just a joke. A guy tried to take my phone and use it to text my then BF that we were over. When confronted, nice guy said my BF didn't treat me right, or else we wouldn't be doing long distance. This was during college, and he was 5 hours away by train. When I obviously got mad, he called me a bitch, a whore, and an idiot for not realizing what I had in front of me. Q 3 days of amongst Facebook statuses with me tagged in them. I block him. He cries about why we aren't friends anymore. I ask him to give me some time and we can try again. 5 days later, deck pic. When I didn't respond to that, he sent me a long handwritten letter about how perfect my body and how he would treat me like a princess, especially in bed. He wanted to impress upon me what a good guy he was, and he was also too scared to ask me out like a normal person. He killed 2 birds with 1 stone by having his split personality tell me it really wanted to kill me, but nice guy was bravely holding it back because he liked me so much. Obviously I fell head over heels immediately. I don't know if this qualifies as a nice guy thing, but it was certainly cringy. I was in the student center at my college, wearing the biggest ducking headphones I had, and a bright yellow shirt with a Pikachu on it. Noise cancelling pieces of sheet. Just did not want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to kill time until my next class, and home was a little too far to make the drive worth it. But this guy comes up and sits next to me, which I think is fine. There's limited seating, and it was pretty full. After about a minute I see his hand waving, and I move my headphones to list. The guy promptly introduces himself and says, "You looked a little lonely, Picketits." The headphones went right back on, and I moved away from him. When I was in college, there was this guy that hung around my friend group. No one actually knew which one of us brought him in, so maybe he just decided to crash, who knows. But he was creepy. He hit on all the girls in the group aggressively and whined daily about how we should just give him a chance to show us how a lady should be treated. We usually just rolled our eyes, although a few of the guys took him aside on separate occasions and told him to knock it off. He also went way over the top in a lot of ways. He'd bring the girls flowers or memorize their favorite candy snacks and present them as a token of his great affection. Yep, he called it that. He had a bad habit of insisting, like legit would not take no for an answer, on walking the women wherever we needed to go. Myself and my best friend at the time both told him his behavior was creepy. There were 3 women in the core group, and 5 others who were close enough that they'd show up at LAN parties or whatever we were doing. He asked every single one of us out at least 50 times. Every single time we said no, he'd go off on this awful tirade about how women didn't want nice guys, and how we should just be open to the possibility of him being the love of our lives. It did not matter how many times we told him we were not interested, not attracted, or in relationships. Sophomore year, a new girl joined the group. For whatever reason, she liked a nice guy a lot. Weird, but he wasn't into her at all. A few of us started using his own BS rhetoric against him when he began whining about her not leaving him alone. It was pretty gross. IDK if this is a nice guy or just really ducking annoying, but a guy I know is hopelessly in love. He knows I'm not single. Tells me things all the time like in another realm. We'd be together. We'd make beautiful children. Don't you think we'd make beautiful children? And I just answer like And then when he sees me, he'll start saying all these love quotes from books he's read. He's made lewd comments as I've bent over before. He also whines that I never message or talk to him. He's some guy at my school, but I hardly see him, so I'm not worried at all. It's just really damn annoying. Ugh, this is long. Bear with me. My parents had friends who had a son considerably older than me, as in like 13 years older. However, when I reached puberty he took a liking to me. My mother loved his family and thought he was so handsome, so she always tried to make us hang out in hopes it would kindle something. Mind you, I was like 16 when he was 29. My mom somehow saw nothing wrong with this. Anyhow, nothing ever happened, and I got a boyfriend until I was 23, at which time we broke up. This is when Mr. Nice Guy swooped in, showing up at my house with flowers and gifts unannounced. I never gave him my address. He asked my mom. Then he would notice I posted I had a cold on FB and would show up with cold medicine and soup, which would be nice if I had any interest in him, but I didn't. He would look where I checked into on FB and coincidentally just be there. I felt bad being like, dude, stop, cause my mom invited him to every family function and I didn't wanna make things weird. It hit the pinnacle when he got a job where I worked just to be closer to me, and he told everyone we were dating. Spoiler alert, we weren't. I flipped out on him and told him he was creepy and that after all these years he never took the hint after me never answering his cal's texts or taking him up on his relentless attempts to take me out to dinner. I quit my job and moved and blocked him on everything and had a firm conversation with my mom about keeping him away from me. She was upset and made excuses for him but ultimately obliged. Years later, I'm now married with a baby and he still relentlessly pursues me if he sees me in public. I met this dude who worked at the local supermarket because he kinda knew my friend. He was legitimately nice. He was overweight, but had great skin and hair. Not my type, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had a hot girlfriend or whatever. He was a little nerdy and shy but pretty cool regardless. I friended him on Facebook since we had a lot of mutual friends. I had just seen an episode of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, before I knew what bronies were, and he was a little too excited. He messaged me with all of these facts about the show and how most episodes were good but a few were a little girly. I said that's fine, since it's a show for little girls, and he got pretty mad. Strike 1. Strikes 2 and 3 were his constant when he posts about females ignoring him for no reason. Going on and on about how the sexy, slim, big-breasted redhead didn't give him her number. He even had his friend make this long post about how awful we all were for not hooking him up with our single female friends. The real kicker? Our mutual friend had a crush on him, and he totally blew her off. She's a pretty Italian girl with gorgeous hair and a perfect ass. She's also equally as nerdy as him, and they had the same nerdy interests. When she asked him out, he said they should just be friends. I couldn't believe it. Dude lives with his parents, work at a grocery store, is a brony, and he turned down a hot nerdy girl because she doesn't look like an Anne in character or the Little Mermaid. In college, I played a lot of online video games. I posted on forums related to these games after one guy, we'll call him Bob, decided to show me how careless I'd been with my personal information. This led to a phone call on a number one never provided, during which he told me what dorm I lived in, at what campus, as well as information from public records regarding my family. On this call he told me how easy it would be for him to get there and grape me. This was quite frightening, and when I put him on blast publicly for it, he stated he was trying to show me how careless I'd been and prove a point. Years later, I went to a group meetup with a bunch of people from this forum with a guest I knew already, and he called me on the same number. Shoulder changed it to ask me to wait for him outside because he knew what I looked like. My guest and I met up with everyone and pretty quickly left. Not a woman, but my gay friend developed this huge crush on me and went all nice guy on me. We were in college and he used to always offer me beer and food and stuff because he had more money than me. It was always fine. I didn't expect this from him, and I didn't think he felt obligated to do it. We were just friends and drinking buddies. Until one night he got really drunk and went on this long rant about how I wouldn't have sex with him, even though he's so nice and does so much to me. I clearly am just using him and intentionally leading him on, etc. We made our peace with this situation later on, but I never forgot how that felt, and I think it made me better understand what women go through. Ugh, creepy Dan. He was a friend of a friend and about 15 to 20 years older than me. I was 19, 20-ish, and he was almost 40. I had a boyfriend, my now husband, at the time, and he still would tell me how much better he would treat me and how perfect we would be together. Before I knew how awful he was, we were all at a bonfire, and when saying goodbye to everyone I put my hand on his shoulder to get his attention to say goodbye. Cue him frantically FB messaging me about an emergency while I'm out of town, so I give him my phone number to see what was wrong. He lived in the same small town as my BF. He went on a huge tirade about the dreams he's had of us together, some creepy masturbation details, and then sang a song he wrote for me. After that he was known as Creepy Dan, and would randomly be at the gas station I was at, the grocery store, anywhere in the neighborhood, and always would send me a text immediately afterwards to be like, "I'm watching you. You are so ducking sexy." Heebie-jeebies just thinking about him. What's worse is some of the guys in our friend group would say the classic, "Oh, he's such a nice guy. Give him a chance." Yeah, I have a very different group of friends now. Early college, me, my best friend, and her boyfriend, who I'll call Dave, all go to the craft store to pick up some stuff for cosplay. We were dressed in kinda punkish nerd regalia. Dark makeup, baggy pants, chains, anime game shirts. When we get in we see a husky man about our age wearing a fedora with a long black trench over an anime shirt. This was before fedoras became the symbols of nice guys, or even before nice guys were fully recognized as a phenomena. So we kinda smiled and nodded at him, since we figured we were all punkish nerds losers. He seemed to sulk off, but we didn't pay it any mind. I broke off from the group to look for something I wanted to pick up, and while I was doing that he came over and while staring at the ground mumbled that he liked my shirt. I said I liked his too, and he quickly slunk away without answering. I met back up with my friends, and as we were leaving she tells me that he did something very similar to her when they've gone to look at something else. Dave says, "I didn't want to say anything while we were shopping, but he was glaring daggers at me every time I saw him. He was definitely waiting until I wasn't nearby to approach you guys." I had felt a bit sorry for how awkward he was, but if he was that pissed off at Dave's presence, I'm actually glad Dave was there. I've run into a few nice guys in real life, but the stories are pretty boring. Probably the most interesting story I have is from the internet. A guy who I knew through some mutual friends I played MMOs with took a liking to me. Said mutual friends quit playing said MMO, but I like to play it casually from time to time. Guy was kind of weird but basically harmless. I didn't make a point of playing with him, but we were in the same guild, so I'd say hi if he said hello, or join groups to do dungeons with him. Someone was talking about breakups once, and I mentioned I'd recently broken up with a guy. Mr. Nice Guy then chimes in that he's sorry to hear it, but what a great opportunity for him. Awkward silence. I point out that's kind of a weird thing to say, even though I wasn't super into the guy I was dating and initiated the breakup. It was still a really creepy thing to say, and he started going on a weird rant about how he'd been mistreated by WOM. I was so baffled I kept talking instead of just logging out or something, and eventually got his story. Apparently he liked some other girl in a game once. They talked on voice chat, shared pictures, etc. This girl says where she lives, so he sells furniture to buy a ticket to see her, and turns out he got catfished, and if I did this to him, he could never trust women again. Needless to say, I will not be surprised if he posts a manifesto on the internet someday. Dude in college asked me out. We went on one date, and I felt zero connection. He asked me on a second date. I gave him a polite no offense, but I don't see anything here. He seemed cool with it and asked if we could still be friends. We had mutual friends. It wasn't an odd request, and I said sure. Cue him constantly telling me how his ex-girlfriends always said he was great in bed, how he had girls tripping over themselves trying to date him. Why wouldn't you pick one of them then? And how he was a catch. He wasn't. He was probably like a 5 to 6. Didn't really have much going for him. Graduated, we moved to different states. Now, 3 years later, he still comments on all my Instagram pictures and Facebook posts with things like, "Well, hello beautiful,"